Misfits, people ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today.
Hello, Misfits. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Nicky Ballou. Nicky is a powerhouse of entrepreneurial energy. He's a best-selling author. He's a thought leadership coach. He's host of the Thought Leader Revolution, the #1 podcast in the world on thought leadership, of which I've been fortunate to be a guest. And he's also the co-founder, president, and CEO of eCircle Academy. Nicky has helped countless coaches, consultants, and service professionals position themselves as recognized authorities in their fields, often adding 6 and even 7 figures to their annual income. But what makes Nicky really truly special is not just his ability to scale a business, but it's his mission to unleash greatness in others. His programs combine deep business growth strategy with the belief that the greatest untapped resource in the world is the human spirit. He's the author of several books, including Finish Line Thinking, The Thought of the Leader's Journey, and The Power of Connecting. And he's built really an amazing reputation as one of the most inspiring mentors for entrepreneurs who want to make a real impact. And so I can't wait to dig into all of this knowledge with you. So let's jump in. Nicky, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I'm ready, brother. Juice, jazz, enthused, ready to rock.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great to have you on. And as we do with every guest, you've got just an interesting journey, a story of how you got to where you're at. So tell us, take 5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Great question. I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, Dave, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran, and there were literal gun battles going on in the streets near my home. My mom and dad were freaking out, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And their freak out factor went up by 1,000 when one day there was a sudden crash through our living room window and an object landed and rolled right next to my feet. Now I'm 11 years old. I don't know what the hell it is, but it was a bottle full of liquid with a burning wick on top, a Molotov cocktail. My dad instantly knew what it was, grabbed it and pulled out the wick. That's the only reason you and I are standing here today having this conversation. He turns the bottle, and on it was taped a note that said, "Die, Christian scum." My mom and dad said, okay, that's it. We got to get out of here. And they made a plan. Took them a couple years, but they got me and my 2 brothers out of Iran, first to Athens, Greece, and then 2 years after that to Toronto, Canada, where I now live. Now at the time, brother, I'm a kid, man. I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to leave my friends. Maybe you can relate. But as time goes on, I could see the nobility of my mom and dad's sacrifice. They left behind everyone and everything they knew for a chance at a better life for me and my 2 brothers. They took us from a legacy of tyranny to a legacy of freedom. And Dave, I believe inside every human breast beats the living heart of freedom. Every man, every woman on this planet yearns to breathe free, to chart their own course, to march to the tune of their own drummer. And if you are an entrepreneur, freedom is what you rely on to make your entrepreneurial dreams come alive. Without freedom, there's no free thought, there's no free expression, there's no free enterprise. And then you've got to rely on the goodwill of a tyrant in order to get a few crumbs for you and your family. And I see this purely and strongly. And my dad was an entrepreneur. And Dave, if you had met my father, you would have loved this man. He was the kind of man that if you were looking for a job, he'd sit you down, he'd call all his buddies, and he'd ethically manipulate them till he got you a job. If you were trying to start a business, he would sit you down, clear his calendar, and give you his best advice and his best contacts. And if you were a friend of his and you were trying to buy a car or a house and the bank wouldn't give you quite enough money, which happened a lot in a second world country like Iran back in the day, you'd go to him and you go, Mr. Billou, I need another 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 to buy that car, that house. And he'd go, here you go. Here's a check. Go do it. And then when you tried to pay him back, he'd get mad. He said, what are you doing? He said, that was a loan. No. That was a gift. No. Don't make me mad. Don't make me mad. Don't insult me. Don't insult my gift. He'd go, okay. So what do I do with this money now? And he'd say, go find someone who was as badly off as you used to be when you came to me and give it to them. And people would say to me, man, your dad, Nikki, man, he's the greatest. And he was the greatest. He taught me that every human being on this planet is someone of worth and of dignity. And he'd say to me, son, life is about people, not money. He said, even business, son, is about people, not money. And I go, Dad, what are you talking about? You got to have money to do business. He said, that's true, son. But without people, there's no need for money, because all business is solving problems for people for a profit. You solve acute problems for awesome people and you make an amazing profit. That's the awe-inspiring purpose of business. And he would tell me, son, everybody out there, me, you, everybody, there are days where our self-belief wobbles. Your job, son, is to show people how great they are, to bring that little spark of belief that'll turn into a roaring fire so that they're off and to the races. And I got into business to serve entrepreneurs, brother, because my father was that man and that kind of man. And I have incredible background in thought leadership, in personal branding, in selling from the heart. And I know all there is to know about podcast guesting, having been a guest on 830 podcasts since May 2022. But the thing that I'm most proud of is I'm Napoleon Billou's eldest son, and I believe in people.
Well, Nikki, I think after that, everybody understands why I asked you to be on the show. And, why we've hit it off, just even in our discussions outside of the show. There's a ton I could unpack from that. You gave some of those great lessons from your father. We'll come back around to that because I want to make sure we get into some of the things for you and from you specifically. Let's set the tone. What is a thought leader? Define it for us.
That's a great question. So Matt Church, who is a true thought leader and writes about this a lot, draws a contrast between an expert and a thought leader. An expert's like someone who knows something. They're able to inform you, right? But experts are a dime a dozen, right? A thought leader is someone who's known for knowing something. A thought leader is someone who provides transformational thinking to you. Another way to put it, the great David Meerman Scott, who is a mentor to Anthony Robbins around branding, said, experts like a cover band while a thought leader plays original music. Thought leadership is all about taking the genius within you that life's adversities have helped forge and bringing that out in a structured way and turning it into utilizable intellectual property that you can use to educate others, that you can use to create transformational level outcomes, and that you can use to build a level of positioning for yourself and your business that can take your business from being in the sea of sameness to being a supernova that's sought after by everybody. Think Elon Musk. Think Steve Jobs. Those men are thought leaders, and they are bigger than any business that they ever started or were a part of. Elon Musk is better known than Tesla, than the Boring Company, and than SpaceX. And Steve Jobs is better known than Apple or Pixar or Next. Why? Because they stood for something. They took the adversities of life and they brought it out there in a very structured way and started talking about it. When you think Elon Musk, you go, this is a man who wants to take us all to the future. He believes that at some point we're going to run out of fossil fuels. So he wanted to go and create the most phenomenal electric car in the world. He wants human beings to be a species that's interplanetary. That's why he created SpaceX. Steve Jobs' vision was to do really a little bit of what you do. You remember that beautiful ad from the 90s when he came back to Apple? The one that said, here's to the misfits, the visionaries, the rebels, the square pegs and the round holes. I mean, that's one of the greatest ads in history, in my opinion. And it says everything about who Steve Jobs was and what he's all about. Apple is a company that 14 years after the late, great Steve Jobs' passing is still known for being the company that wants to help great men and women who are up to great things and up to making their dent in the universe do that with style, with pizzazz, and with the best and greatest technological tools in the world. Their companies have become the two of the most valuable companies in the world. If you become a thought leader as an entrepreneur, my friend, what you can do is you can create a amazing following of customers that will chase you down and buy everything you create. You can create an amazing following of A-level players who will take a third of what they could get elsewhere just to work with you. And you can find investors that flock to you and throw money at your ideas and your projects. That's the beauty of thought leadership for the entrepreneur.
So great distinction between like expert and thought leader, right? So you just laid it out. You showed the difference. You show what it can mean for somebody that transforms into that. But the question and the place where everybody gets stuck is, well, how do I transform into that, right? And you've helped clients add 6-7 figures to their businesses through becoming thought leaders. So what is the first step that someone should take to really start positioning themselves in that way?
Well, that's a great question. Honestly, there's a program that we offer called the Branded Thought Leader Immersion Workshop. It's a 3-day deep dive into yourself. And the first step we take is we have people actually write out, what is it that you know? We call them the statements of expertise. So we have you write out 52 statements of expertise about a particular area which you have expertise. So Dave, I'll give you an example for myself, okay? When it comes to podcast guesting, I'm known as an expert. I'm known as a thought leader in that space. So here's one of my statements of expertise from podcast guesting. Okay. You need to have a triple intention when you go on a show, not just a single intention. That intention has to be to inspire your audience, to make your host thrilled they brought you on, and to build a strong relationship with the host that lasts beyond the podcast interview. Okay. So when you listen to that, right? Now, I know you and I have talked about this, so you've heard this before because I shared this with you in a previous conversation that we had. But most people who hear this for the first time are kind of startled by it. They go, oh my God, wow, that makes sense, but I've never heard anybody say that before. So that's the sort of thing that we encourage our people to do. And by the way, don't have ChatGPT come up with these statements for you guys. That's not doing your own original thinking. That's getting AI to do your thinking for you. You got to come up with these on your own, okay? So no cheating.
That's the blessing, blessing and the curse of AI, right?
Stuff.
Yeah. We should, but we don't have to think for ourselves as much anymore, right? And
but that's not good.
That's not good.
That's not good. Nope. We can get into why that's not good. Yeah. ChatGPT is a wonderful tool, and I use it all the time. Don't get me wrong. When I need to prepare a presentation that normally would have taken me 12 hours to do, I go to chat and I go, give me the outline. I look at it, I tinker with it, I fix it. So the 12 hours I used to spend on it now is down to half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour max, right? That's the beauty of ChatGPT. But you've got to have your own original thoughts in there.
Exactly.
And when you come up with these original thoughts, there's a lot you can do with them, right?
The way that I look at it is it's another tool in your tool belt, right? And so
exactly.
like anything, if you know how to wield a tool, it's going to make your life that much better. If you don't know how to wield a tool, it just sits on the shelf, gains rust, and doesn't really do anything for you, right? So, if you know how to wield it well, which is if you can utilize your original thought and then pair it with the powers of AI, yeah, it's a 1 + 1 = 5, right? And so that's the difference.
But if you don't do the basic thinking yourself, you're not a thought leader, buddy. You're a thought follower. You're an AI follower. And if you came up with 52 statements yourself and you were sitting with a potential client and they said, oh, this sounds really good. Could you please explain it to me? And all you did was regurgitate what AI said, you'll be exposed pretty darn quick. You know what I mean? and you're going to lose all credibility, and you're probably not going to be able to build the kind of relationship you want to build with that client. So that's why I think it's very important you do your own thing. So we get people to start with an exercise like that, 52 statements of expertise. The second thing we have you do, okay, is we have you take a really deep dive into what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Where are your superpowers? Where's your kryptonite? That's important for you to understand. Self-awareness is key to thought leadership. Y'all who are listening to this ought to write that down. Self-awareness is key to thought leadership. So we have you go through an exercise that has you go deep into that. And then the next thing we have people do is we have them take an inventory of why clients should work with you. And there's some really good questions we have you ask of yourself of why clients should work with you. Because you need to be able to marry your thought leadership with your offerings in the marketplace, because that's what makes them super powerful. Like you said, 1 + 1 becomes 5 then, right? Once you understand that. And once you understand that, then we want to really tie that to your purpose. So we have you do a deep dive into your why. And it's not just one question, what's your why? We got about half a dozen to a dozen questions we have you ask of yourself and answer. And you're in a workshop type setting, Dave. So you're basically paired up with other really smart entrepreneurs, and you're going to go back and forth and share with them and get critique and feedback from them, as well as me as the leader in the room. And once all that's done, then we're going to take some of these statements of expertise and we're going to build them out for you with you into full-on intellectual property. Okay, you need a good snapshot of what your IP is. So this triple intention that I just gave you, what I'm going to do after that is I'm actually going to give you a few case studies of how this has worked involving me, some people that I've taught this methodology of podcast guesting to. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go and talk about some people who've written about this. So I wrote a book about this called Get Booked and Get Paid. There's another fellow who wrote a book about podcasts. There's actually 3 or 4 other fellows, and I'm going to list all of those and say, this is your literature review. This is backing all of this up. All right. And then we like visual models. So we go, let's use a model that'll illustrate this. Boom. Once all this is done, man, and by the way, this isn't original to me. This methodology was created by a guy named Matt Church. Once all this is done, though, like people will go, okay, I got steak here. This isn't just sizzle. I'm not biting into sizzle, burning my tongue. I'm biting into juicy, medium rare ribeye steak from Alberta. You're seeing my Canadian bias over here right now, right? Alberta beef is pretty darn amazing beef. And that is what really is going to make you stand out, because when people are interacting with you and you speak not just in influencer hype terms, but you speak from having done the work to get the genius within out in a structured way, and you start to engage with people and explain it to them, whether it's just in a presentation you're doing for educational purposes, or whether it's part of an engagement where you're attempting to see if you're going to do business with an organization. They're going to look at this and they're going to go, this dude has taken the time to think these issues through. We trust him to give us good solutions, versus, oh my God, he's just another influencer who looks good on Instagram or TikTok, but really there's no there.
No, those are great points on all. I just let you go on that because they're like, go back, listen to that segment. I mean, that's your blueprint. Unless you go through the workshop, that's like your blueprint to do this on your own. I've said so many times, and I'm reminded by guests like you so many times on this show of like, people don't get what they want because they don't know what they want. And they don't know what they want because they never take the time to sit down and really ask themselves and figure out who they are. Like most people have never like taken a Friday afternoon for 4 or 5 hours and just sat in silence with a pen and a paper and like asked, what do I want? Why do I want it? What do I believe? What don't I believe? Like in doing that exercise, even that will give you so much more clarity on who you are and what you should be doing and where you should be going. That can change your whole trajectory. You pair that with something like what you just described, and man, it's like adding rocket fuel to it. So those are excellent points. In fact, I want to take just a quick 1-minute break right here and come back because this pairs with the next question I want to ask you that is a great continuation of this. So we'll do that. We'll be right back.
Misfit Entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? The cost can easily exceed 6 figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of 3 non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again.
All right. So, Nikki, I've heard you say that the greatest, and you mentioned it in the beginning, the greatest untapped resource in the world is the human spirit. So what does that mean and how do people unlock?
That's a great question. So, Dave, I believe in a higher power, in God Almighty. Okay. I'm a Christian. And I believe God has put all of us here for a purpose, and it's a mighty purpose. And our job in this lifetime is to discover what that purpose is and name it and claim it as soon as we can. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that's a fair assessment of why we're here alive on planet Earth?
I would. Only thing I would add to it is, and you may know this, but if the audience doesn't, do you know what your chances are of being alive?
1 in like 7 billion.
It's
or some
1 in
crazy number
4
like that.
trillion. So just to
there you go.
Put that in perspective, that would be like a city the size of like Chicago or San Diego. If you gave everybody in that city a trillion-sided dice and had them all roll it at the same time, they would all have to come up with the same number to have that same chance. So literally, everybody listening to this is an absolute miracle. So
a miracle.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
And that is my point. That is my point, right? And so given that truth, there is something innately beautiful and special about you and about the purpose that you have on planet Earth. And the way to discover it, ironically, isn't by thinking about me, myself, and I. It's about thinking about others. It's about thinking about a cause bigger than yourself. Okay? The people we most remember on planet Earth are not the ones that were the tyrants and the dictators and the robber barons who just like me, let me grab all that I can. They're the people who stood for other people to make their lives better. These are entrepreneurs. These are politicians in some cases. These are saints. These are ordinary people. Think about Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is quite possibly the greatest world leader of all time. Certainly top 2 or 3, right? And what made him so? Well, he was someone who wanted to keep the Union together while freeing the slaves. And he did what he did. He waged civil war from an energy of unconditional love. Think about that. Have you read David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force? Are you familiar with his work?
I haven't read it. I've heard of that book. I've never read it. So
You got to read it, Dave. Put it near the top of your reading list.
I think you're right. And probably references or it's about Lincoln. I mean, if you remember what Lincoln did after it was over, because everybody wanted to basically just
get revenge
on the South for everything. And he said no. He said, we're going to welcome them. We're going to,
with malice toward none and charity for all. You remember that line?
Yep.
With malice toward none and charity for all. That was like, think about this. Think about this. This is greatness personified, okay? You remember Lincoln for that. You remember the immortal Martin Luther King, who said, I have a dream that one day in this land, my sons and daughters will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He never even held any sort of office, and everybody reveres this guy. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur, a plutocrat capitalist. And man, today, 14 years after his death, Dave, people still are loyal and flock to Apple. 14 years after his death. Why? Because Steve Jobs saw us. Steve Jobs is the patron saint of this podcast. Here's to the misfits, the rebels, the square pegs and the round holes. Okay? Steve spoke for all of us. And that's what has us lean into Apple so hard. The great Ronald Reagan, there's too many great speeches, but I'll tell you this one that I remember when he stood in Berlin, okay? And he spoke directly to then Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. And he said, Mr. Gorbachev, if you believe in peace, if you believe in freedom, Mr. Gorbachev, come here to Berlin, come to this wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. People remember Ronald Reagan. Listen, there have been a few presidents who've died in my lifetime, okay? When Reagan died, my God, the outpouring that people had. My God. I mean, 3 million people converged on Washington, D.C. to walk past his casket. I flew to California, okay, to his presidential library to be there shortly after that happened of Canada. I'm a freaking Canadian. I cried, bawled my eyes out when he passed. Why? Because these are the people that stand for something bigger than themselves. So if you want to awaken the human spirit within you, you got to stand for something bigger than you. Let me tell you about my mission, man. I am a warrior for freedom. I'm the freedom man. They call me freedom man. Okay. And why is this? Because I believe freedom is our birthright given to us by God Almighty. And I also believe, Dave, you and I talked about this, that there are dark forces out there trying to squash our freedoms. So I have a plan. I got a mission, Dave. And you and me, we're simpatical. We're brothers in this mission. I want to create the biggest constituency for freedom the world has ever seen. So these dark forces of socialism, of communism, and of evil are defeated once and for all. And you know how we're going to do this, Dave? We're going to help create 1 billion multi-millionaire misfit entrepreneurs on this planet by 2040. You and me and a whole bunch of other people, man. That's our role. Because with 1 billion multi-millionaire misfit entrepreneurs on this planet, socialism ain't got a chance.
Entrepreneurship
is
the answer. It absolutely is.
It is the answer.
And that is the mission.
And that, my friend, is what everyone needs. They need a version of your mission, of my mission for themselves. You got to spend the time. And if you can't get it done on your own, or you want to be in a room with other people, reach out to me, come do our workshop, because we spend a freaking day on this in our workshop to make sure you nail this. But once you nail this and you put it out there, I'm going to tell you, people are going to love you. There's so many people, when they hear me say 1 billion misfit entrepreneur multimillionaires, they go, okay, sign me up. I want to be one of them. I want to help you make 10 of them, 20 of them, 50 of them, 100 of them. Because God knows I ain't going to make all of them by myself. I'm just one dude. But I'm going to hold the vision, man. I'm going to hold the vision just like Ronald Reagan held the vision of communism and the Soviet Union defeated and freedom spreading across the globe, man. Just like Mother Teresa held a vision of the poor in the most despairing places on earth would have dignity and love. Just like Steve Jobs had a vision for the misfit entrepreneurs who could change the world to change the world. Just like Dave Lukas has a vision for the misfit entrepreneurs of the world to be able to do what they do and make the world a better place. We need that, man. That's how we're going to win in life.
You know, it spurs a question. I wasn't going to ask this, or I didn't have a plan to ask it, but it spurs the question. And this is something that like it's, and I think you would agree. Um, there are so many people that don't realize their true potential and capability and possibility.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like sometimes it's like when you say freedom to me, like there's a lot that is encompassed in that there, because freedom, it's not just freedom of like money. Yes, money is a wonderful thing because it does give you freedom in the sense that you can do the things you want to do, have the life that you want to have, but it's freedom of the mind. It, like understanding, like we talked about, original thought, free thinking, right? Which is
Yes.
honestly is becoming more rare even today. And so it's like you meet some people and it's like, do they even want freedom? Are they more comfortable being in a way dependent? Right. And it's like, that's the struggle, is how do we change the mindset of people to go and to recognize their dependency and free themselves from it, because it's hard work and it takes a lot of work to do it. But once you do, the sky's the limit. To me, that starts in the mind and understanding and I've talked about this on the show many times, and I know it leads into something I think you're passionate about, but the conditioning that people get that shapes how they think, that determines
Yes.
their reactions and what they do in life. I don't think people recognize that most of that was never put there by them, right? Your beliefs lead to your emotions lead to your thoughts lead to your actions lead to your results, right? So if you take out everything in the middle, your beliefs ultimately are your results. But I think most people's beliefs, and this is why I say the great exercise is to like sit down for a Friday and ask yourself what you believe. Most people's beliefs that they actually move off of and act off of are not anything that was originally put there by them. And that's the realization. How do we help people really realize that and work through to really reach their true potential, I guess?
That's a great question, and it's a layered
It
question.
is.
So I actually did an episode on my podcast called The Five Freedoms. It's one of my Friday episodes, which I call Thought Leader Nuggets. They're about 5 to 10 minutes long, and you ought to listen to it. But let me just briefly talk about the five freedoms, okay, Dave? So most entrepreneurs get into business because they want to be free, but what they do, like you said, is they equate success in business with freedom, right? And at one level, they're right, because financial success does help create financial freedom. But here's the truth. That's not enough, right? Many entrepreneurs, they have financial freedom, but they lack time freedom, right? They're just tethered to their business. They can't get away to enjoy time with the people they love, doing their non-business passions, or just to relax and enjoy life, right? And they haven't designed their business or their life so they're able to actually work on it, not always have to be in it. And I really believe that in addition to financial freedom, you need time freedom. And then there's three other types of freedom, right? So one of them's health freedom, right? Health freedom is like having like rude, good health, right? You and I have talked about this. It's really important because that lets you physically do the things you love, like walk, like run, like ski, like lift weights, like travel, etc. Right? And there's so many people in business that trade away their health just to get financial or time freedom, and their health is gone. So they don't have any health freedom, right? Robin Sharma, who's the author of the legendary book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari in the 5 a.m. Club, says that health is the crown on the well person's head that only a sick person can see. And what this means is you got to invest time and energy into optimizing your health. You got to have health freedom. Then there's emotional freedom. And this is a little bit what you're talking about. It's emotional freedom is you don't need anyone else's approval, right? You think for yourself. A lot of people are people pleasers, right? They go through life trying to avoid conflict. They need the approval of other people just to feel emotionally whole. This makes them an emotional slave to the good opinion of other people. And for them to be truly free, for you to be truly free, you need to develop a strong internal compass that relies on your own opinion, your own approval to be free. Now, that doesn't mean you go out of your way to tick other people off, but it does mean that you should go out of your way to honor your own wishes and convictions. And then finally, there's mental freedom. And that's about what we talked about this entire show, which is you got to do your own thinking, Don't outsource it to others, especially to ChatGPT or to propaganda outlets like those in the legacy media. Like a free man, a free woman thinks for himself, thinks for herself. She makes up her own mind. He makes up his own mind. That doesn't mean you don't take input or feedback or advice from other people. You always want to do that, but it does mean at the end of the day, you got to make up your own mind based on what you think is best. And if you're an entrepreneur, you got to have all 5 of these freedoms. If you don't, you're not really free. You know what I'm saying, Dave?
No, I totally agree. Like if you look at like health, we've heard health is wealth and all that stuff too. To me, it starts with understanding that that emotional and that thinking side, because if you can't get that right, everything else gets affected, right? So you got to start there.
Yep.
If you're going to start somewhere, start there and really understand why you think the way you do, and choose the thoughts that make sense for you versus just reacting or acting on what's been put there from wherever it came from. Right? That's the first step. From there, everything changes, because you and I were on your show. I talked about the DCP formula, right? Discipline, consistency, persistence. From there, it's just like, okay, all right, I make a commitment and I make the choice to be disciplined in my health and consistent in my health, right? And so on. And like, it gets so much easier from there. But you've got to tackle what's in your head first, because everything else stems from that. So at least that's the way that I see it. And that's where I've seen the biggest breakthroughs in people's lives come from, when they start there and do that. Speaking of just like great advice and piece of advice, and I guess this is where I want to end before we get to your Misfit Three. You've mentioned it. Thought Leader Revolution. You've interviewed so many amazing people, amazing entrepreneurs. I guess, what are some of the most powerful lessons that you've learned from guests that have changed how you think or operate?
That's a great question. The top people I brought on, the guys who are like billionaires, world famous, those types of guys, right? Like I had a Silicon Valley multi-billionaire, TJ Rogers, on my show. You got to check out TJ Rogers, man. A lot of people don't know his name, but he built an amazing company starting in the 80s, and he sold it for $5 billion. And then he built a few other ones. Really, really super cool guy. And I've had Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul on the show, and John Maxwell, who's the #1 leadership author and a great Christian as well. These are some of the most down-to-earth, humble people you've ever met. There is no artifice, no pretense about them. They're not trying to show you they're great. They're comfortable in their own skin. And even though they came on the show and I was asking them questions and they were my guests sharing their wisdom, this was what blew me away. They all wanted to learn from me too. They asked me questions, man. One of them said, hold on a sec, you've had like 600 people on your show? Tell me about that. What's that been like? Like, I was blown away that they wanted to learn. Like, the best people are always learning. You know what I mean? They don't ever think they're done. They're continuing to learn. They've got that humble beginner's mind attitude. Honestly, that's something that my father always drilled into me as well. He'd always tell me, he said, be humble, son, be humble. You don't know it all. And people are what you really need in life. You need to be connected to people, and you can't be connected to people if you're acting like you're better than them, because you're not better than them. And that's really, really important, and that was something that was heartening for me. Secondly, these people, to use the parlance of power versus force, it's got an emotional vibration scale, right? Going all the way down from shame to enlightenment. And I really highly recommend you read this book. It'll open your eyes to how you can get to a more beautiful level of understanding and peace and attraction at a way higher level, because these emotional scales, once you really get them, you can start working toward raising your vibration on a consistent basis higher and higher and higher and higher. And that's a beautiful thing. Okay. These folks are constantly working on raising their energy vibration. They may not all call it that. I mean, John Maxwell is like a devout Christian. He doesn't talk in terms of energy, but he's always thinking about how he can feel better, be better, do more. And that just raises his frequency. And Maxwell attracts tens of millions of dollars a year to himself. And he's not trying super, super hard. You know what I mean? He's not a guy who's like grinding it out. Just by how he shows up in the world and the value that he offers to the world, he pulls that in. That was another powerful thing that I learned from interviewing all these guys and gals. And then one last thing I'll share with you. Every single one of these people is willing to get their hands dirty. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're willing to have a sales call if that's what it takes to get a deal done. They're willing to go in on a Saturday if that's what's needed in their business to get things going. If they're in the office by themselves and I don't know, the toilet overflows, they'll go grab a plunger and they'll start fixing it. And you need to be that kind of person.
Yeah, they're never
You're not
too
above
big for
any
anything.
job. No, they're not. They're not above any job. They'll do what it takes to move the needle forward.
No, that's excellent. And honestly, there's some great wisdom, and it's a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit Three. And we're going to do that. So we're going to take just one more 1-minute break, and we'll be right back with Nikki's Misfit Three.
Before we get into today's Misfit 3, I want to take a minute to talk to you about a free resource available to you from the Misfit Entrepreneur, the Misfit Minute. The Misfit Minute is the free weekly resource packed with useful tips, tricks, and information from the world of Misfit entrepreneurs. It not only includes further resources on the week's Misfit Entrepreneur guest, but additional links, articles, and resources to help you be more successful. It's delivered every Friday to your inbox. To sign up, all you have to do is go to the homepage at www.misfitentrepreneur.com and you will see the Misfit Minute sign-up page. Don't miss out on this great resource and all it has to help you. Sign up today and look for it this Friday.
Okay, it's time for Nikki's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take away that you can take and put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth tomorrow and you can only leave behind your best 3 pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Nikki, what are your Misfit 3?
Great question. So first, always prioritize the 4 S's, okay? First S, sun. Get out in the sun a lot, right? The vitamin D is good for you. It'll help improve your mood, right? So you got to get out in the sun. Second S, steak. You got to eat lots of steak. It's God's perfect food. It tastes really, really good. It's good for you. Steak, you got to have steak. Have steak every day if you can. Third S, steel. Lift weights. Steel, man. Build your body. Skeletal muscle is the greatest predictor of longevity and a happy life that there is. And the 4th S is sleep. Sleep. Prioritize sleep. The great Colonel David Grossman told me that 2/3 of the people in the West are sleep deprived. That is not good. Sleep more. Prioritize your sleep. It's super, super, super good. So those are the 4 S's. That's Misfit number 1. Misfit number 2. Read books. Read books. I was listening to Jack Carr. You know Jack Carr, the former Navy SEAL and best-selling author on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he said that since 2001, the last 24 years, the number of people reading books has plummeted. Of course, this has something to do with the advent of the smartphone. More people are consuming things on their phone, but this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. Read books. Reading paper books actually soothes the nervous system. It calms you down. It's good for your health. And it's the best way to learn. You can do it in a considered fashion, man. Read books. And Misfit number 3, you ready for it? Believe in people. Because everybody's self-belief wobbles. Yours, mine, Dave's, everybody's. And all they need sometimes is someone to see how great they are and believe in them. And by the way, if that's you today, if you need someone to believe in you, reach out to me. Go to my website, ecircleacademy.com/appointment and say, hey, I just need someone to believe in me. I'll give you my time for free and I'll show you why you're worth believing in. That's my Misfit 3.
Nikki, it's an awesome Misfit 3. Thank you for sharing that. In fact, after this, I think I'm going to go grab a book, sit in the sun, or read for a little bit. No, if people, you just mentioned it, say it again. If people do want to learn more about you or connect with you, where should they go?
My calendar link is at ecircleacademy.com/appointment. And honestly, I say this, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're just a human being going through a rough time, jump on the calendar and say, I need help. I'll give you my time. And people think this is crazy, right? They think, oh my God, I don't have time to do this. And I'm a busy guy. Don't get me wrong. But You'd be so shocked, Dave, at how few people actually take me up on this. You'd be shocked. People are nervous. They don't think I really mean it. And I really mean it. I'd be pleasantly surprised if like 10 people jumped on and did it. The most that ever took me up on the offer was 43 from an offer I made on a podcast back in 2020. But usually it's maybe 1 or 2 people. And I've looked into why this is, and people are they don't want to bother people. And I'm just telling you, bother me, man. I'm okay. I like being bothered. It's good.
All right, you've thrown down the gauntlet, Misfit audience. Take him up on it. Awesome stuff. And, we'll link to all that. Everything will be in the show notes and stuff so they can find you. The best show notes in the business. No offense, for reasons I will talk about more in a second. But for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, it's your first episode with us. Welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I hope you become a regular listener, subscriber, and are with us week in and week out. And for all of you that are with us every single week and, have given such great feedback and everything over the years, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes us go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself as part of my personal growth routine. Every single week, I go back through these episodes and I take my best pieces of wisdom and insights and tips and things like that from great guests like Nikki, and I share them with you. So check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review. Like and comment on it. Help share Nikki's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe there's something that Nikki shared today that was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Nikki, thank you for coming on today, sharing all of your wisdom and your insight.
Thank you, brother. God bless you.